Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. This is my dad, Dr. Cary Herzberg, who has been in the myopia management industry for 50 plus years. He's one of the pioneers of modern orthokeratology. He's one of the trailblazers, the trendsetters in myopia management. He has inspired the careers of and helped educate the careers of so many successful myopia management docs out there. Cary, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Matt, it's great to be back with you again. And looking forward to this episode. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
we're going to talk
Carrie
about
and
some
I,
cool stuff.
yeah, Carrie and I have put our heads together because we really want to bring this concept of practice independence, which is something that Carrie and I have worked on in the past, and we want to bring it back to fruition. So what we want to do with this concept is really help the modern ECP take more control of how they practice, how they do business, and implement some of the strategies that Cary has developed over the last 40 or 50 years, and learn from his experience. So Cary, let's start out by saying let's define what practice independence really is, because it's a
Right.
cool phrase, but what does that really mean? What does practice independence mean?
Well, it means you're your own boss, basically, that you run the show, that
Hmm.
you make the decisions, that basically what is this the way it used to be in the old days, back in the day before these VCPs came about.
Hmm.
And so we all were, subject to the whims of what was out there. Obviously the people coming to our practice, so we had to get good at this. Being that kind of a person that would be able to attract new patients to their practice. And so there's many different facets of that.
Right. So
But
the idea behind practice independence is essentially taking control of what appears to be an uncontrollable or chaotic situation.
yeah, it really is.
And the cause of that seems to stem around, these factors that have been haunting optometrists for at least the last 20 years. The ideas of vision insurance controlling the practice, becoming this heavy weight on the practice. This idea that patients can just come in for their scripts and get their glasses or contacts online. This idea of feeling the pressure to fit into this marginalized McDonald's like model
Hmm.
where you are just like every optometrist out there. And the real crux of this problem, in my opinion, really comes from optometry school, in that optometry school is going to do a great job of teaching you how to treat patients and be a great healthcare provider. But unfortunately, what they're not going to teach you with, I'm taking this from the feedback of many of the docs that
Hmm.
I've talked with over the years, that they're not really not going to teach you like how to, differentiate yourself and how to offer the level of administrative care that is required to be a specialty care provider, to differentiate yourself. To They don't teach you how to be a business person, for instance. I've heard over and over again from optometrists, I didn't go to optometry school to
Right.
become a salesperson. That's what I feel like is the conflict of practice
Mhm.
independence. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, they don't teach you how to make a living,
Yeah,
basically.
that's a great way. That's a much better way to put it. Yeah.
you and consequently, most of the doctors you talk to, young doctors today, they're very dependent on these things because they have no clue.
Hmm.
And some of them get their MBAs, other things that they go, back into school about and further their education and get what they need, but a lot of them don't.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like a shortcut. It's I understand why we got there. I understand how the medical model dictated what our schools were going to do, and I supported that because through all the years we've grown and our license has grown. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a part of this beyond that. There's always been a part of this beyond that, and doctors are not getting enough of that to really give themselves a solid foundation on how to really build a successful practice, one that is not dependent, in my opinion, on vision care plans, one that can survive on its own. That's really the telltale thing here.
Right.
If you were to turn around tomorrow and say, I will no longer take any vision care plans, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying do that, but if you were to do that, could you survive?
Right.
And that's the question, as we look in the mirror, we have to ask ourselves, and the answer for most of my young colleagues is there's no way. I mean, it's not happening. Okay.
Right.
They just do not have the background to do that. And so what we're hoping to do, I think, in this series of podcasts that we're going to do is actually give them some encouragement, give them some really great ideas on how to move forward with this and how to build that sense of being, that sense of even wellness for practice wellness, that
Right.
we're trying to teach here today.
Yeah, and I would even venture forth that it's not just vision care plans. It's because the way we used to fight this in years ago was through private practice. The private practice owner was in control of their own destiny for the most part, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, the era of private practice has changed so dramatically. You've got new docs coming out of school saddled with debt. You have a business environment that does not immediately suit the new optometrist who would, if they would even be interested in private practice. The students I
Right.
talk to or have heard about, the idea of private practice is like is kind of scary, or at least best case scenario, it's like, well, I would love to do that someday, but right now I have to pay off debt.
Mm-hmm.
I have to find employment, right? And so they're finding themselves in these systems, whether they become a big box optometrist or whether they join a practice network, essentially, where they're an associate and they're working for, a team or a private equity even, or another doctor, and they're being, focused into this specific way of practice.
Yeah, private equity has impacted. It's been an amazing impact, a very negative impact, in my opinion, because it doesn't have a future.
Hmm.
Where they buy out these practices and then they're not available to growth.
Right.
We can go into how we've avoided that outcome in my own history.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that again, to understand where these kids are going and what they need to have is the fact that in any time at any point, I hear the message I hear the most is, well, I just want to practice medical optometry. Okay,
Right.
medical optometry. And to be truthful about it, that's great, but there's not enough to go around. I mean, honestly,
Hmm.
if you strictly take the allopathic medical model that we're saddled with in this country, that is a very limited model. And it's a model of treating chronic diseases, okay, and getting paid for it. Okay. And
Yeah.
sure, there are doctors that are going to do that successfully, but there's not, thank God. I mean, we don't want to get there where that makes a living for every optometrist around, because that means we're really sick.
Hmm.
And the funny thing about it is there's so many different areas of optometry that should fall within that medical model, for instance, including vision training, that, these are growth areas. These are wellness areas, the wellness thing, right? That's the catchphrase today. Everybody's talking wellness. Well, guess what? We
Right.
have the profession of wellness. Look at our background. That's what we
Hmm.
practice. In the old days before we started using topicals and others, we were practicing wellness optometry, which is basically keeping patients healthy for most of their lifetime. And so this is really where it's at, this preventive care wellness model, which has a huge growth potential because most of us get on the road to being very sick, in our
Right.
lifetime. And I think today with burnout as high as it is, I'm talking to kids half my age that are burned out.
Right.
I mean, this is like the elixir, the magic elixir for most everyone who's sick, is sick of being, seeing so many patients in a day that they can't turn around and go back again. And it's like abuse,
Yeah.
you know.
And the first one that we want to focus on is the very beginning of it, which is you have to become the decision maker. And you call this optometry's biggest advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So let's define that. What is an optometry decision maker? What does that mean?
That is someone who's a doctor,
Hmm.
who doesn't play a doctor on TV, is actually the doctor, and their decision making is the most important thing for that patient to hear. And yes, today we have that happening. Okay, I grant you there are many doctors that are doing very successfully at this, but for the vast majority of us, okay, most of our patients are looking at what does this vision plan cover rather than
Hmm.
what's important for me. And
Right.
so being the eye doctor, okay, in the practice means that you're going to, take this patient along on this wellness path so they don't have to resort to these other things. They don't watch their health deteriorating, and, if they can avoid it, things that you can do that are preventable. And so getting to that point of being the doctor, stepping back in the role of being the doctor, which has been, it's not happening here. This is in medicine in general. I mean, gosh, delegating all the way down the tree is fine, but eventually the buck, like Truman at his desk, President Truman, the buck stops here. It literally, colleagues, the buck stops at your desk,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I want it to be, because I want us to be the final decision maker on that, not the vision care plan, choosing what I'm covered and what I'm not covered for, kind of a thing, and not building a practice so that I can sell to private equity. That might
Mm-hmm.
be maybe make you rich, but are your patients is that going to make your patients healthier?
Yeah.
So there it is, and I found that if we just look at what we have, we have an overflowing cup with optometry that isn't being tapped in at all. It's like there's a quote. No, they probably don't remember this movie Annie Mae with Rosalind Russell, but she said, the world's a feast and most of the poor suckers are starving to death, which
Mm-hmm.
means that you're looking right at your reality there and refusing to see it, which is the fact that you need to practice optometry. You need to go back to the roots of practicing wellness and healthiness, and that's what we're known for, as
Yeah.
optometrists.
So what is the decision maker like? What does that mean in a modern practice? Because I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback because I can already hear the responses to this, which is saying, I'm an associate at a
No.
practice, or I work in a
Mm-hmm.
practice network. I'm not the decision maker,
Yeah.
or I can't
And
afford to
they
deviate from insurance, or
and they
I,
literally, Matt, it's like a Mack truck
mm-hmm,
just hit them. That's how the feeling is, that you just can't, you're stuck in the system. And, I don't know about you, but any human being that gets stuck in the system is not healthy. It's not
mm-hmm.
a healthy thing, right? If you can't be who you are and practice the way you want to be, that's not a healthy place. Okay. So,
Right, but
so
that's
I'm,
the reality though,
that,
isn't
well,
it?
the reality
So
is,
are we saying that, if you work for a big box, or if you're an associate, or if you work in a
you know,
practice network, are we saying, hey, you're SOL? Sorry,
no,
this
I'm going to,
episode series doesn't apply
I'm
to
going to
you.
tell you a person, Glenda Mohipus,
Mm-hmm.
okay, who works at Walmart, right? And she does all the myopia stuff. She does ortho-k, whatever it is. And she's built separate independent practice out of it. And she's thriving at the Walmart because she's not a yes person. She wants to
Mm-hmm.
practice the way she wants to practice. And the Walmart people, looking from management on down, are watching that encouragingly. They got a topographer, everything else, because you have to step out. You can't be afraid of rejection. I mean, sure, we get rejected all the time. Patients do it every day. It's like a slap in the face. And sometimes you don't want to put that face out there again to get slapped down. But unless
Mm-hmm.
you finally define yourself for what you are, and I'll tell you one thing, if our colleagues would start to define themselves, I don't think they'd be out of a job. I think they'd be growing that job and growing their income, by the way, too, because there are facets that these people that they're working for don't have a clue what that means. They're looking
So
at a very
yeah,
narrow model, narrow
let's
vision.
start there then. How would the modern optometrist define themselves? You know, um, how does that work? If let's pretend I'm the modern optometrist, I've got some gray hair, I've been out of school for a
Yeah,
while, I'm in my 40s, and I'm like, you know what, Dr. Herzberg, this whole thing has not worked out for me.
right.
I'm an associate at a practice network. I have no decision making power.
Mm-hmm.
The people who own the practice tell me what to do. I abide by insurance. I see a patient every 10 to 15 minutes. How do I become the decision maker? How do I define myself as you just stated?
I realize that there isn't, perhaps in their contracts, there's not a growth model that they should have in their contracts. But I
Hmm.
mean, you start in these practices that's limited like this. Suppose you start selling two, and I use the word selling very ably, two or
Hmm.
three extra pairs of glasses to these patients that are walking through the door. You don't think that would be noticed in a short period of time? That's just a small part of what you can do by just paying attention to people's needs as vocational needs. Okay. I
Hmm.
mean, we'll go into my history, at some point, but just use optometry because in the end, if you don't start, if you don't start to get noticed by the fact that you're suddenly increasing sales 3 4 times what they used to be at your place that
Hmm.
you're practicing in a commercial setting, then you need to move on because nothing's going to happen there, guaranteed. This is a dead end. This is a
Right.
dead end job. But if you're in a situation like Glenda was in, where all of a sudden now they're paying attention to her because they're smart people, and they can see there's a lot of, what she's doing is healthy and it's growth wise. And plus, why wouldn't you, as a large corporation, want to get into wellness?
Well, because
Everybody wants to get into wellness.
large corporations move very, very slowly,
Mm-hmm.
and they exhibit like a stifling amount of control
Mm-hmm.
over the people who work for them because, they have a developed system and how things work. And when you deviate from that system, it usually causes people higher up than you that aren't really concerned with the same things that you're concerned with. They're concerned with number going up, or at least number
Oh,
maintaining. So when you start deviating, they start raising their eyebrows
okay.
and go, "Doc, what are you doing in this
So
situation?"
the first thing you do with a situation like that is that you're going to go in there and tell them that this is not going to be business as usual. That you're going to actually give them more. You're going to create more business for them, but you have rules that you have to abide by. They have to they have to let you have a defined ground.
Hmm.
Where you are practicing. They can't tell you how to practice. You have to practice the way you need to practice. And a lot of times, I think what happens is that a lot of our colleagues, agree to this model, which is a
Right.
bankrupt model. It's going nowhere. It's for them. I mean, do you want to get a pay? Is it like getting a paycheck every week and that's it? You
Well,
know.
that's the unfortunate circumstance of it. Again, a point of pushback here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the modern optometrist, I shouldn't even say new, but the modern optometrist, like, has to pay off debt. They have to pay their bills,
Absolutely.
and then they get kind of stuck in the machine,
Mm-hmm.
whereas in years past, you became a private practice doc. You paid off your debt and opened up your own private practice, and some are doing that. I've seen it. I've seen it, but that's more of the exception instead of like,
Yes, it
you
is.
know, the doctors I grew up with, yourself included, and the other doctors I knew through the AAOMC, it was like the goal was private practice, right? And it was like, okay, how do I get there?
You can do this in a commercial setting. You can do this,
Hmm.
and it's like green eggs and ham. You can do this on a plane. You can do this on a train. You can do this anywhere. Sam, I am. This is a model that works because it's successful, and the
Hmm.
model is successful on all different scales. Another number one is it increases the where you're practicing, the commercial
Hmm.
setting even. It increases their volume. They can see the return. It gets your patients better, wellness wise. It
Yeah.
sends patients out who need the treatment out to where they need to go to have the treatment. So what it does in effect is stimulate optometry, because how many CI cases pass by us every day that don't get diagnosed, right? So I mean, it's really the only thing that's an impediment here is the unwillingness of a colleague to want to take a risk, and I can understand that. I
Hmm.
get it. There are people who are risk adverse, you know, but in the end, and I've seen this happen, as you said, in model after model, there are people out there that will make these changes that will get it done for you because you are that different. And I challenge everyone out there to be different. I challenge them to practice the way they want to practice, to be the person they want to be instead of what they're being told that they have to do. And I
Hmm.
think I think you can do that very successfully, and you can demonstrate it can be successful all the way to all different aspects of what you're doing, including increasing the output, of the commercial practice you're in, increasing their
Right.
their,
I
their
mean, that's
demand.
that's really the
That's
only way
bottom
you
line
can do
stuff.
it.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
can very easily.
that's really the only way you can do it is that you have to take whatever it is you want to do. We're going to use myopia management as the example because this is primarily a myopia management podcast. So what we're going to make the assumption is that you're the modern optometrist and you want to become this decision maker as you've outlined, and you want to take this to the people who have control over how you practice and how
Mm-hmm.
often you see patients. And Brianna Rue has spoken about this. She spoke about it on past podcasts. It's like you can't just show up and be like, "Hey, practice owner, I want to do X. What do you think?" It's like you have to do what she did, which is you have to come in with everything prepared. She came in and said, I want to do specialty eye care. I want to do myopia
Mm-hmm.
management. Here's how this is going to pay off for our practice. I've done the research. I've crunched the numbers. I've, looked out there at like I just recorded an episode with Ashley Tucker and Kevin Chan, and they pointed towards a review of myopia management article about the specific financial aspects of opening a myopia management component to your practice. And it's like, if nothing else, it's a great example for what you should do when you take this to the people who are in charge. If you're working in that practice network, if you are in Glenda's situation where you're working for a Walmart optical and you're saying, like, look, this is what I can do for this situation. So you have to do your homework, essentially. You have to do the extra work to
You know,
define what that looks like.
I think that really is, man. It's prepared. It is preparedness, but it's like you have to become a successful optometrist, is what it is. You have to learn
Okay.
and do your background, do your homework. You have to have the ability first to do that, and to have
Mm-hmm.
the ability to do that, you have to know what you're doing. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the bottom line: is you're not getting enough of that in school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be secondary education. And the good news is that there's plenty of groups out there, okay, that can do that for you. But to get back to your question a little bit, let's just let's just leave myopia for a moment, just a moment
Mm-hmm.
here. I worked for Creo Corporation for a number of years. They made the near point test. That does when you emphasize, when you start working with let's say computer vision for one thing, is you're automatically in the by definition talking about 2 to 3 pairs of glasses minimally
Mm-hmm.
for a patient. And whether you're in commercial practice or private practice or whatever it is, that's success
Mm-hmm.
because you have to put the effort in though, but you get it back again, on the other side because you're now, guess what? Your practice or the commercial setting you're in is now doing 2 or 3 extra pairs of glasses for every patient you're seeing. And how many people are on computers? 75% of them
Everybody.
have CVS. So it's just being qualified. We're really talking about, and we shouldn't make excuses for it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you prepared to do, if you're in myopia, are you prepared to do all the aspects of myopia that you need to do? Can you do ortho-k? Okay. Can you do multifocal soft contact lenses with confidence? Can you talk behavioral vision? Can you do low dose atropine? And on it goes. That's really the point here, because if you have that background, if you're qualified, you know what you can do, and you
Mm-hmm.
realize the answer already. It's not like, okay, I go into a room, okay, or talking to a patient or whatever it is, and I have a lot of passion for what I'm doing, right? They can read this. This is like on your shirt sleeve. They know it. They know, you may be totally wrong, but you're passionate about it. Are you passionate about what you're talking about here? Do you really want to, change? Do you really want to become this,
Yeah.
independent?
So step one is because you were saying step one is to define yourself. And I would challenge you to say you should redefine yourself instead of define yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think because
Oh, yeah.
if you're listening to this, you probably you probably gotten to a certain point. So you need to redefine yourself.
But,
And and what I hear all the time is like I said earlier, I didn't go to optometry school to become a salesperson. And it's like you have to figure out a way to come to terms with the fact that we live in a culture and a society where everybody is selling all the time. You go on a date, you're selling yourself.
mm-hmm.
You want to make a good impression on your in-laws, or you're selling yourself. Or if you think your kid's not getting enough time on field at the little league game, you have to sell the
Yeah.
idea that you want your kid to have more playtime, and you have to abide by these rules in society that we all understand in order to get your point across, right?
I did
And
my best work. I did my best work after age 50.
uh-huh, yeah,
Now,
I want to get into that in
okay.
a little bit later, okay?
Okay.
Because I want to use you as the example of what you did, but I want to stick to the point of, you know, how does, if we're making future decision makers, how
Yes.
does one redefine
Okay.
themselves?
Here's one thing that we don't have in optometry that we need. Okay. Okay. We need specialization. We
Mm-hmm.
need doctors out there who will teach young doctors how to do what they do. Basically how to become a specialist in the field. Whether it be myopia or anything else. So we
Mm-hmm.
don't have that. Medicine has that. They have the built-in residencies. Everything else is set up for them. It's unnatural for them. I mean, they don't go in. Yes, they have general ophthalmologists. Okay, but they have mostly retinal specialists, glaucoma specialists, and corneal specialists. On and on it goes because they've already made the assumption that their doctors need that attention.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need in optometry. We need specialization coming from the AOA, coming from schools, coming from everywhere else that will take these doctors out and put them into special. It's kind of like you go into, are you going to go into full college, or are you going to learn a trade? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not demeaning anything because everything's valuable. But the thing is here, you have to kind of decide where your path is here. The good news in optometry is that this field is so big now, you can't know it all. It's impossible to do everything. Yet we try. There's doctors out there try every day. It's time that they have to decide what it is I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what kind of an optometrist am I? Yes, I can say that now. What kind of an optometrist am I going to be? And that's kind of like where you start off with this thing because it's a big field and you have to kind of decide. And by doing that and define yourself that way, you've made your path. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going in the end. If you do it, if you do it the way you should want to do it, and you have the passion for it, you'll be very successful with it.
Yeah. I think that step one would be you have to come to terms with this conflict of selling, of being a salesperson. I like if I were to generically apply this to the modern optometrist, because like I said, I'll say it again. I didn't go to optometry school to become a salesperson. And I think this is the first and foremost thing you have to do when you redefine yourself is you have to come to terms with this particular aspect before you even start looking for your specialty. I think you need
You
to
know,
come to terms with the fact that this sales aspect of it. And I think the trick when it comes to myopia management, I think the trick is that like, are you selling or are you informing? I think that's the important distinction. I think what you should do is to get your mind right with whether or not you can be a salesperson is to make it work for you and to say like, okay, and I think there's a big part of being a decision maker is you're going to say, I have made a decision to inform every patient and their parents about myopia management and because it's important that they know about it. And then I
mm-hmm.
will let them decide whether or not it's something that they want to continue the conversation with. And I think once you can get over that hump, I think that you'll have a much not easier but much more streamlined path towards your goal of just being like, okay, am I selling or am I informing? Because I think what I've learned over time is like with the successful myopia management docs is they looked at the myopia epidemic and they were like, I have a duty to inform because I want everyone to know about why this is important. And then I will let them decide whether or not they want to continue with that. And I think that that's the important first step is like when it comes to a specialty, when it comes to selling, you need to decide I'm ready to start informing my patients because they're not going to find out about this under normal circumstances unless they hear from you, which speaks to what you're saying about becoming the expert.
It's a okay. The bottom line here is that you are responsible for your patient's wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not like a thing out there, that you think about. You are responsible. It's kind of a little bit like Chinese medicine in a way. If your patient gets sick, it's on your plate. It's your job one is to make sure that patient doesn't get sick. If do everything you can.
Mm-hmm.
So to start out with this, you do I always felt like you had to have at least a 5-year. I know we don't do it today. We don't plan ahead enough. I had a 5-year plan for every patient
Mm-hmm.
of what they would be doing in 5 years. And I would explain this to my patients. I would tell them what the plan was. And so, is that selling? Yeah, I think it is in a way because it's my plan, and
Yeah.
I'm selling my vision of what they want to be. But these patients never had this before. Most
Mm-hmm.
of us never look that way to a patient to say, what is this person, I'm in their shoes now. What is it going to be like 5 years from now? Because I grew up with the old saw is you do unto others as you have done unto yourself. You treat everyone as well as you want yourself to be treated, and I
Right.
did that patient after patient after patient because that's the important thing. That's the reason why you're there,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, there were things that happened in the way that encouraged me to go in that way. And we can talk about that later. But I think, is this selling? Of course it is, because
Yeah.
it's like I'll stand in front of a lectern, okay, and there'll be like five people out there. There'll be several hundred, if not more, sometimes thousands. When I went up talk to in front of ophthalmology conferences, and there was only a few doctors out there who actually thought the way I did,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be encouraged when they would come up and dispute some of the things I was telling them. It wasn't that I didn't like that. Is that would stimulate me in conversation. So this is kind of what you do. You're really looking for that patient who's going to be, giving you a hard time about it. And I
Mm-hmm.
always looked at the standpoint is I'm going to find something to cut that whatever the facade is away. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd do a great job of really undermining their stand, where they're coming from. In fact, I would show them basically where it doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is that selling? Okay. I mean,
I
this
mean,
is,
fundamentally, yes, but
yes,
you have to evolve the concept of selling into something else
yes,
because you
yes,
have to work with the tools that you're given.
yes.
And if you are especially an American optometrist, the tools you have been giving are you exist in a society that sells. Like, I don't want to speak for how it is in the rest of the world, but this is the world you live in. So if you want to achieve this goal, you need to find the part of you that can sell. And I believe that there's ways to access that make it more,
Okay.
not just more palatable, but empowering to who
You,
you are.
you're going to have a situation, if you're in myopia, you're going to have patients that, what are you going to do for them, right?
Hmm.
Ortho-k, multifocal soft lens, so on. I would tell my patients that this is what this meant to the little youngster, what this meant to their life. Okay. And I'd have patients telling me, this is life changing, 8-year-olds. So do I sell that? Absolutely, because I have to, because they're going to spend a lot more money, at least initially. So today, in today's age, not so much, with multiple soft lenses and such, they're going to make us an investment in any case, in any of these things. And so if you don't have a vision of what that means for them, then what exactly are you talking about? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So you have to be a finisher, a closer, you
Hmm.
know? Not only do you have to, if you don't want to call it selling, you have to be able to close the thing, close it,
Yeah.
the argument.
Yeah. Let's go more into what you just said about what you envision for your patients, because you brought that up before. And
Yeah.
I think that that's an important part of the next step of like redefining who you are,
Mm-hmm.
getting right with the idea that you're going to have to sell this and what does that look like,
Mm-hmm.
but also envisioning what that looks like for your patients, like using myopia management as an example. And I want to go back to the idea of to this idea because the negativity around screen time, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
is it's so thick right now. You could slice it with a knife. I'm hearing all the time about the negative aspects of screen time. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what, Carrie? I am never hearing anything about how it affects your eyes. Okay. And
Oh, yeah.
it's like, like I can't believe more optometrists aren't picking up myopia management because society is essentially handing you
Right.
this problem and everybody else is assigning like the other day somebody was like, there's studies that show that when technology is introduced into the classroom, their grades start to go down. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, it's also really bad for your eyes. Oh,
Yeah.
it is? How so? It's like
Yeah.
there's all this stuff about the mental well-being of children because of increased screen time. There's a loneliness epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Kids don't have as many friends as they used to. That's
Right.
it's created a more sedentary lifestyle. There are 1,000 different reasons why screen time is getting such a negative stamp put on it. Social media is now being rejected openly as the unhealthy
Mm-hmm.
monster that it kind of always has
Yeah,
been.
it is.
And the funny thing is, I'm never really hearing outside of our circles, I'm never really hearing about its effect on the eyes, even though this has been
Yeah.
communicated in our
It's a big,
circles for
right.
years now.
Yeah, you're not hearing it.
So it's
But the,
like that's what
but
I'm
the,
saying is like if you're going to do what you're
yeah.
saying as far as envisioning what this means for your
Okay.
patient, society is handing you on a
Right.
silver platter
Because
an issue.
Because once you start talking that to your patient, you're walking into a place they've been already. And
Mm-hmm.
you're telling them about these screens, which they already realize are bad news. And you're
Yeah.
telling them what you want them to do with the screens, basically what you want to do with these
Which is what
devices.
the parents
And they
want to
thoroughly
hear.
agree with you.
Yes.
Yes. And you're like, and you instantly have made it a friend if you talk about,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to
Not
influence, be an
just a friend,
influencer.
not just a friend though, because you are advocating for mom.
Mm-hmm.
And, Brianna Rue again makes the point of like, hey, kids don't really want to hear it from their parents. But if the
No.
doctor is saying, look, your mom is right when she's trying to tell you to
Mm-hmm.
dial back on your screen time, like I support her
We,
decision. Like,
we had parents tearing up
mm-hmm.
over these discussions because they felt so alone in this
Yeah.
place, and teachers weren't even supporting them, that they
Mm-hmm.
had nobody. And then you'd say these kinds of things and they would start to tearing up, like, or even clapping because it's the first time anybody's ever stood up for them. So, yes, I mean, it's another point of being, I think instead of asking the question, I think instead of doctors asking the correct questions, I think they're looking at this from the reverse side up instead of looking at it
Mm-hmm.
from the front side, because they're looking at it to try to make this thing work within a system that doesn't work.
Right.
I've already said allopathic medicine is bankrupt. Okay.
Right.
It makes us
Right.
sicker. So, you've got to think then again, this is something different, something new. And in order to be a game changer, a difference maker in this field, you're going to have to start thinking like a difference maker. Okay. And using your skills, which are many in optometry, to be that difference maker. The good news is that this is vision. Vision is 80-90% of learning. Okay. It's truly important. And you are practicing that skill. And so that profession. So use it. Don't play the model that was created by my dad did when he was in the jewelry store. Don't be that kind of
Mm-hmm.
an optometrist anymore. Be
Right.
someone who steps out and says, you know what? I'm taking responsibility for your vision, your kid's vision,
Yeah.
your health. I'm going to be that one that you come to if something doesn't work out, because it's going to
Right.
be on my shoulders. Then you don't. I would tell my patients, you stop worrying about this thing. They were obsessed with it sometimes. Let me worry about it. If I tell you to start worrying, then you can start worrying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I don't say anything, consider it done. So this is what we do. I mean, and you can't make that fit into the old model. It just doesn't fit. So you have to kind of reinvent yourself, which we'll talk about
Mm-hmm.
in this series of how to do that.
Right.
And it's a wonderful thing, Matt, because it's you can rise like even from the ashes, you can rise as a phoenix again. I mean, I've done it.
Yeah.
So
Well, not only have you done it, but you've also helped other
oh
optometrists
my God, around the world.
through myopia management, through the AAOMC and your own efforts. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
there. So, step one, as we defined it, was you need to redefine yourself and what you want. Step two was you need
Okay.
to come to a moment of clarity about selling. Step three is you need to envision what this looks like for your patients
Mm-hmm.
and you like maybe step three should be you need to pick a specialty and step four is you need to envision what that looks like for your patients. And then step five of becoming the decision maker is to do your homework so that
Mm-hmm.
you can show whoever it is that you need to prove this to so that you can lay this out in front of them and say, this is what I'm going to
You,
do. And
you
this is how it's going to benefit our practice.
you've got to feel qualified
Mm-hmm.
yourself. If you don't feel qualified yourself, it'll show in every interaction. You have to know what you're doing. You have to really invest in that. You have to go to the meetings that will do that for you. You get the experience, work under the doctors. You need to find a mentor. I was
Mm-hmm.
blessed with the best of the best as far as mentors are concerned. You
Mm-hmm.
need to go after things. We did I've been an FDA investigator. That didn't happen
Mm-hmm.
by accident. Somebody just come up to me and say, "How would you like to be an FDA investigator?"
Mm-hmm.
That went because I went after it. I used everything I could to get involved, so I could become an FDA investigator. I did one of the most important investigations there was, which was the original Euclid one that became the B&L patent.
Mm-hmm.
B&L, FDA approval. I did that. I was involved in that study. I was one of 10.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen by accident. That's intentional. So
Yeah.
so I think we need to say, well, at the beginning, your life needs to become more intentional. I,
Right.
I used to ask my patients, I said, you got here, you drove or you flew or whatever it was to get here. What did you see? And they
Hmm.
couldn't tell me because they were on the device all throughout the drive. I said,
Yeah.
you're missing life.
I want to go back to this idea of finding a mentor. So many successful myopia management docs has said find a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like that's easier said than done. Like when I've asked this question before of like, how do you find a mentor? The answer I was given was like, go to Vision by Design and start talking to people,
Well, it's one
which
way.
that is one way. That's how it's been done in the past. You go to Vision by Design and you start striking up conversations with people. And lucky for you, Vision by Design is a great environment to talk about ortho-k and myopia management. So your chances of finding a mentor are significantly increased. But like, you've been a mentor for so many docs. Can we
Yes.
give someone a better idea of like
Yeah.
what should they be looking for? Like, how do they find a
I
mentor? And then
I'd
what can
start
a
in the
mentor offer them?
local community
Uh-huh.
that they're to go and visit other practices in their area to see what they're doing, and
Yeah.
and get involved in local societies, but also start working up groups that do this
Hmm.
stuff, getting some interest going. We used to have the doctors, my colleagues, supposing my competition never was. They come to my practice, we teach them all the stuff we're doing.
Hmm.
We just give it away because why not? Because it's
Well, I mean,
something that everybody should
realistically
have that
speaking,
ability.
there's more kids in need than we can deal
Oh
with.
my
There just
God.
simply aren't enough. Like this was brought up in the episode I did with Dr. Bartman and Dr. Chapman, an ophthalmologist and optometrist.
Mm-hmm.
And what Dr. Bartman, the ophthalmologist, said is like, hey, there's a decreased number of ophthalmologists. Like,
Right.
not as many people are becoming ophthalmologists. It's
Well,
it,
they've limited the residencies.
And so like there's a similar problem in optometry. We just don't have enough practitioners to handle all of the kids that need help.
Can you
So
imagine for a moment if our colleagues, not this isn't even, had start just diagnosing some CI disorders, convergence insufficiency, other common things that are happening, accommodative insufficiency, and referring those out
mhm.
to doctors that actually treat that and take care of it. Can you imagine what that would mean for the field and the reciprocation wise they'd get patients back from these other colleagues? To be referring from colleague to colleague, from OD to OD instead of OD to MD,
Mhm.
what that would mean for our. I mean, this is old. This is old stuff. I've talked about this till the cows come home. But yes, it's not gonna. You're not gonna get there by sitting on your ass. It
Mhm.
really is not going to happen that way. And you can complain all you want about the way things are and bemoan your situation in life. But until you take as a human being that first step, which is huge,
Yeah.
it's not going to change. So yes, you have to become, I think, intentional is a primary word here. It keeps coming back to me. The intent to do something different with your life than what you're doing.
Right. Let's talk about the advantages of being the decision maker. Like let's say once you have become the decision maker, what are the
Oh
advantages?
my God.
How is this going to pay off
Oh my
for you
gosh.
in your practice? Like, what is that
Oh,
immediately? Like, if
it's
somebody's like,
called.
okay, I'm interested, I want to become the decision maker in like, which seems like a distant prospect considering all the other things we just talked about. What is that going to do for an optometrist who wants
Freedom.
to pursue that? What does that mean? What does freedom mean?
It means that you can start to do things that you want to do, and you can also start to make your schedule realistic.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to see 40,000 patients a day unless you want to. You know, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about you, but I see my colleagues bragging about that, man. That's not something I'd be bragging about. That's not, I don't know. I mean, they make it work, but to me, that's not what we're doing here. I mean, unless they find another way to talk to their patients and to convey all the things that we're talking about here, which I highly doubt. That's not the way you want to be to it. Okay, bottom line is I'm a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to treat my patients like human beings. And we don't need to be moved like cattle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, we deserve that human interaction. And I walked out of many MD offices because it wasn't there. One visit, I'm done. I found someone else. I'm looking for someone like me as an MD, to handle my healthcare. That's the kind of thing too. You talk about your healthcare. Would you put up with it? I mean, seriously, some people do, but
Yeah.
should you? Is that healthy for you to accept that for your own healthcare? So this is really something that you ask the question. This is freedom because
Mm-hmm.
it's liberation of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking the shackles out. The prison cells are coming down. The doors open, and your mind is allowed now. You're allowed to go and practice the way you think it should be done. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that you haven't done until you were daydreaming in optometry school, maybe for
Right.
some of us.
But you have to be able to prove if you are accountable to a doctor, a network, or a big box or whatever, and you have to prove the financial viability. How are you supposed to prove like, hey, I'm actually going to see less patients? Use myopia management as an example. You have to be able to show that like spending more time with the patient has a relevant payout
Mm-hmm.
that is more valuable than seeing
Yeah,
patients rapid fire.
the practice that I'm working is going to have to get specialized in that. It's going to have some of the things available that we'll do with that that'll promote the patient's need, like my site or whatever it is that they're going to have available. That's going just bottom line stuff.
Right.
And
But
then
if
they're
I'm
going to, and then of course with our spectacles, Stellist.
right, but if I'm holding the if I'm the person you need to appeal to and you're going to say to me like, "Hey, I'm actually going to see less patients
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to pay off like this." How does that happen? Like
Well,
how do you prove that?
okay. It's so we're practicing myopia, but we're also practicing optometry, and to get down to a model again.
Hmm.
You're starting to, in any case, whenever you're practicing preventive care, whenever you're practicing healthy wellness care, you're going to be, this patient's going to be having a lot more things they need to do, as far as, and even complying for in the practice that you're working in, the business model, whatever it is. So they're going to be investing more in that model themselves as far as services, okay,
Hmm.
whatever it is. Now, I grant you, if you're in a model that's very restrictive, it's going to be tough because they're just selling selling this product, and that's all it is, and there's nothing much more that's going on. But if somebody can think beyond the box and say, what, I can take a look at your patients and bring like half your patients back in and do some more. They're going to buy soft contact lenses, they're going to buy glasses, they're going to do other things. The patients that you hadn't bought it private or had bought, hadn't made that kind of investment in the product in the beginning, they're going to spend more money with you. You're
Hmm.
going to make a greater margin on it. I mean, it just, you know, the crazy thing of what we're talking about here is we're trying to talk about a restrictive model in a unrestricted model, which is hard because it's so hard to put yourself back in that box again. Because once you've left it, it's like these things are self-obvious, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I know the answer to this. I'm just like, whenever, whenever talk to docs and they're like, I need to spend more time with the patient, right? Like, I'll give you an
Mm-hmm.
example. When I was with J&J with the ability lens, I was astounded because I was used to doctors who took the time to do quality topography capture. So that was just a given for me. When I start working with J&J and going into practices that aren't that pedigree of ortho-k doctors, I was astounded at the fact that they were shortcutting topography and not taking the
Mm-hmm.
time to do it.
There's a lot of shortcuts.
And when I started digging into it, it's like, oh, they're required to stay on a schedule. And I'm not talking about big box or private equity. I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
doctors who are
Yeah.
associates in practices they don't own,
Yeah.
and they are going to have to take the time to get quality topography capture, and that doesn't fit into that model.
Right.
And
Right.
so
But this
I
is
had I had accounts where if they did spend the time on quality topography capture, they would see great success with ability overnight. And the ones that didn't had lenses that
right.
weren't fitting. But that's kind of the crux of any ortho-k lens, essentially.
It's the crux of any model you talk about, because basically, are you going to sit there with the vision care plan dictating your practice and how you practice?
Well, that's the reality.
Are you going to practice the way you were taught to practice? Are you going to practice optometry?
Right. But so how do I go to the practice owning doctor or the people who own the network and say, I need to spend more time with these patients?
Do you want to make more money?
Well, right. But then like, that's what I'm saying is like,
bottom line,
how are you going to show to these people?
Well,
that
give me a model where you're at. I mean, there's different ways of doing that in different settings, right? So if you're like an associate in a private care practice, and you walk into that practice, you want to show some of your value. One of the biggest things you could do is go back into the files and pull them out. If you're talking about myopia, whatever it is, pull these young patients out that have been seen and haven't had it, and recall them back in again. And you're going to turn a vast majority of those patients into care. Getting care for them, which is going to immediately stimulate this practice, probably 30-40% bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, you have to calculate the chair time, essentially. You have to be like, look, here's the potential payout, and I've gone into our patient records, and here are the following patients that we're not really, it's not as profitable as it could be. And they're obviously potential candidates for myopia management, if we're using that as the example, because this is a myopia management podcast. And because you've done your homework, and you say, here's the ROI that we can produce with a myopia management patient. They're already in our practice. And if we reapply this strategy to them, we can begin to turn these patients more profitable for the practice overall. And we're going to be giving them a level of treatment and care that they're not going to be seeing anywhere else. Because I think that's another important thing that you have to, because this is so often overlooked, is like, and this is like what we've talked about over and over again. It's like when you provide a level of care to parents and patients, they take notice.
They do.
Because we live in this, to your point earlier, we live in this society where it's like, you have to see a patient every 15 minutes. Do you think they want to just be seen for 15 minutes?
No.
They want to be able to tell you what's going on. They want to feel like you care. How are they supposed to do that in 15 minutes, right? So it's like these two sides need each other, right?
The patient was the patient being taught.
The patient is being taught that you're McDonald's and that they can get in and out in 15 minutes. So they're going to tell you what they want.
Some of the patients, that's what they want.
Right.
But I maintain the vast majority of patients don't want that.
No, I agree. But
let your practice be steered by the small minority that do.
That's what the patient has been that's what the patient has been forced to do. Like the insurance model has really screwed over both sides of this equation.
No, it's
right.
Well, yeah.
It really has.
Yeah, the thought process that you can buy medical care and not pay a lot for that care is a idea. Is not correct.
Yeah.
That's a misnomer. It's not true. And so we've been selling that model that we're not going to pay our providers so that you can get all this great care at a discounted price. You sometimes don't even pay like a $10 copay. You're going to get this kind of care. That's not true. You're not going to get that kind of care. What I tell my patients, I tell them that too, is you're getting inferior care because of that. And it's not the doctor's fault in a way, though you are a co-conspirator here, because you're accepting that. And what we're saying is don't accept that anymore. That's not healthy. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for your patients. It's not healthy for the system. Because guess what? In the end, we're going to spend a lot more money on that patient than we would have if we just done it the right way, which is always the case with us humans. We just, it's costly to do it the wrong way enough. And in the end, that's going to cost us a lot more. And whether it's the end of life or whatever it is, or it's chronic diseases or whatever it is, you name it. Okay. They can produce the numbers that support this. And what's good in our way are people that have made a lot of money at this thing and don't want to share. Okay. They don't want to share healthcare with the rest of us. Okay. They've made a lot of money at it. They want to keep it the way it is, as bankrupt as it is, because they're making a lot of money. They're paying their CEOs, whatever it is. But this is not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And the system has to get rebalanced. And, that can be painful for some.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have to start this process in optometry. We have to take back our profession,
Mm-hmm.
okay, from them, because we're the optometrists, not them. We have to start and we have to start practicing that profession, what it's meant to be practiced, which is a vision, which is a very huge vision of what we're doing here, that we're hardly practicing a portion of it, a small portion of it.
Okay. Yeah. So if the first advantage of being the decision maker is gaining freedom, what's the second one?
Oh, peace of mind. I mean, it's like, it's like, there's more weight, but there's less weight on your shoulders. It's being your own captain again. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the theme of this whole episode. It's
Mm-hmm.
like being in charge of your ship again. This is the course I want to steer. It's like being in a boat that has a rudder.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like what you're dealing with normally, where you're unprepared, where it's like you're like in this boat in the middle of a lake without a rudder, and every time the wind blows one way or another way, that's where you're going. No, you're going to head for that northeaster now, right at the teeth of that thing, because you have a sturdy boat, and you're going to get to your goal, your destination. So it's peace, and don't discount this. This is sleeping at night a lot better, because, and yes, in the end, you're going to worry about things like making money, which all of us worry about, and support our families.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have a smile on your face, because at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of those success stories that we have. If it's
Mm-hmm.
myopia, talking about our successful patients and what we've done for them, and that will continue on for the rest of your life. That's the good news. It will
Yeah.
continue on, and these patients will continue rewarding you for the rest of your lifespan if you want to. Or you
Yeah.
can retire earlier. It's up to you, but you'll
I
have
mean,
that choice.
you use this example of weight, and I would alter it to be like meaningful weight. You're going to be carrying weight no matter what. And there's a different, like, if you can ever identify with this idea of like you're working hard but you're spinning your wheels, or
Yeah.
you're not gaining satisfaction. I think most, in my personal opinion, most people are not adverse to hard work. They need
No.
meaningful hard work. When you put something meaningful in front of somebody, when they're passionate about it, when they're dedicated,
Uh,
when there's a goal, when there's a payoff to it, hard work isn't the question.
it,
Like, especially when it comes to Americans, the very hardworking people. And but I think if you have purpose, if you have meaningful, if you have meaning to that weight, and I think that what you're describing, the peace of mind, is what, like, you're excited to go to work and work hard when you are the decision maker. When you are like,
mm,
yes, we're doing, if your specialty is myopia management, you're like, yes, we're doing myopia management. I am working towards a goal. There's so much to be gained in the specialty that I think it's meaningful weight. You are working hard towards something you believe in that resonates with
it's
you.
it's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anything else in life. I mean, let's suppose your goal is, I'm going to lose weight or whatever it is. And the first day that you start on that and you get your mind and your body on the same page,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing more powerful than that. It's like you have an energy going forward that don't get in my way. It's that kind of thing. It's anything else that when you finally set who you are in, they say the mind thinks and the heart, just feels, but put it in your heart, put it to that passion, that place that you want to be in. If you
Mm-hmm.
go along with that and you're now in the same place as that is, there's an energy there that's almost inexhaustible. There's no burnout here, because it's like you have almost unlimited energy to do this because you're not limiting yourself anymore. It's like you took the restraints off. All
Mm-hmm.
these restraints that you had that kept you from being that person are now off. I mean, you got into optometry for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Check that reason out again. Okay, what was it? I always
Mm-hmm.
tell, I take experiences of people that just want to, make a lot of money and, excuse me, be a stockbroker or something else. I'm here to take care of people. Money
Mm-hmm.
is great, but it's not my bottom line. Okay. I mean, yeah, I want to feed my family and take care of them. I've done very well at that. But it's more than that. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, when we make decisions, We make decisions because it's for the patient's well-being. Even at the end of the game here with my practice now getting to that point where I'm not there as much as I used to be, and merging with another practice, it was all done for the patients, not the bottom line. It
Right.
was done for their welfare and well-being, and that goes like so far. I mean,
Yeah, and
gosh,
I think that speaks back to the sales component, right? Like if you are ultimately being able to by making this conceit that you do have to sell, you are improving things for your patients. You are taking care of your patients as a result. So the sooner you can
yeah,
get over this idea, like
yeah,
there is a much better benefit at
okay.
that comes into play for this.
So we had, in ortho-k and in myopia management, we have a contract we work out with the patients. And so the contract stipulates it's going to be more expensive the first year and discounted rate, right?
Hmm.
And it goes like that, but you want them to sign this contract. That's how you do things. The contract is really important. So you do that. What comes along the way is a patient, suppose I've been asked the question, well, suppose in the middle of the year, the patient cracks a lens or something, or you need to change the lens, let's say, just change it.
Hmm.
Do you charge the patient for it? My answer has always been, you know what, I've made so much money on this. They've paid me so much on this. It's like an
Yeah.
annuity. Why would I even think twice about it? What my goal is to have the patient seeing well. So I'm going to change the lens. I'm not going to charge them for it. I don't need to worry about it. My bottom line says I don't need to worry about it. Do you want to be there at that place? You don't want to have your ethical decision making run by
Right.
finances.
Yeah, like
Okay.
what you're getting at is that if you don't sell appropriately and get paid for what you're doing, then you are not empowered and you do not have the resources to make those changes when they come up or deal with those
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Leah Johnson on the podcast had said, she goes, I factor in what are the most amount of visits or cases, things that could happen, and then I price out for that, knowing full well that the average patient that I encounter will not get to that point. But she said, I need to, and I'm summarizing what she said is like, I just need to be ready for when that does happen. And she gives an
No.
example of a patient where she did refit after refit after refit. And the
Yeah.
patient was like, wow, you've probably lost a lot of money on me. And she said, don't worry about it. It's
No.
fine. We're going to get through this. We're going to
You,
get it figured out.
Matt, do the calculation. If you have a patient who started out, let's say, in a myopia management contract, okay, and they were 7 years old, and they're still seeing you 30 years later,
Yeah.
every year they see you. I mean,
Hmm.
this is what happened in the old days with my dad's practice and with physicians in general. Patient after patient, year after year, you saw the patients, you saw their family, their grandkids even. It just kept
Hmm.
going. This is what this is like. This is like a whole different, this is like old-fashioned medicine, where medicine used to be done for the patient's benefit, and you spent time with your patients, and it pays off. It
Hmm.
pays off so much more than the other system, which doesn't really basically and burns you out in the end, so that you can't even do what you're supposed to do. It probably ends up giving you a heart attack or something else, or high blood pressure, high cholesterol, whatever it is. It's not healthy.
Hmm.
And the first place it starts not being healthy is that in the first place it's not healthy. You realize intuitively inside of yourself what you're doing is not good. And so you
Yeah.
need to change. You really do. And you need to do it as soon as you can, if you can. But we'll have stories
And
later on about that. Even if you want to wait till later, I've got stories for you.
I mean, I have seen this, like, I have seen several examples of this. And one that I'll talk about is I was working with a practice who I assumed that they had a contract in place, like you described. Again, this is part of, I got used to working with successful orthokeratologists and myopia management docs, and I just assumed that you knew that the average optometrist who wanted to do myopia management would discuss everything with the patient, create a contract, put them in a plan, account for their costs, be upfront about everything. And this practice that I had been working with did not do that. They were presenting adjustments to the patient as an additional fee instead of doing what Cary just described, which is
Right. Just take
coming
care of
up
it.
with what that looks like. And the patients that when they had to do adjustments gave the it was such a bad pushback. What do you mean? I now have to pay
Yeah.
more for another
Right.
set
It's
of
not a good
lenses.
taste. Not a good
And
taste.
I was like, why didn't you cover this in your contract? And they're like, what contract? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, are you serious right now? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, do you realize what you're doing? You're nickel and diming the patient essentially because you didn't charge enough and cover all the things that could happen uh, because it didn't go right for this particular patient. And so I've seen this firsthand, what you're describing. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go to the third benefit of being the decision maker. If the first one was freedom and the second one was peace of mind, then what is the third benefit, the third advantage to being a decision maker in optometry?
Practice growth.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Okay. If you care for just vision care patients, or just vision care patients, you're not, it's the vision care plan. It's not you. It's not a way to build a practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because they're not really your patients. They're the vision care patients. And I have a testimony to tell you, they'll move along if you drop the vision care. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to build a
I've seen it
practice.
firsthand.
Yes. You want to build a practice made of loyal patients. Are your patients glad to be in your care? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a thing, right? The old fashioned way, they came to see you, not your vision, not because they took vision care. And when
Mm-hmm.
we were still taking vision care plans, that's what we heard. They're here for the plan. I said, oh, that's fine. What am I doing? Basically, you could replace me with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So become irreplaceable. My mentor, Newton, said, become a legend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He said, that's how he used it. He said, become a legend. He was so correct. Become
Mm-hmm.
a legend in your own time. Become a legend with your patients. Can you do that? Not replaceable, a legend,
Mm-hmm.
irreplaceable. That they look upon you as being, gosh, I hope you don't retire, doc.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be? Don't ever retire. Be there. I want to come back and see you. That kind of
Right.
thing. Do
Well,
you
not
hear
just
that?
not just that though. Not just don't retire, but you're also looking for this thing that happens with, again, myopia management patients, where when they have a doc who cares for them, when they have a doc who spends time with them and delivers this level of care, they tell other people about
Oh
it.
my God,
They
word of
bring
mouth.
that referral network is the probably the most valuable thing that I mean, let's talk about positioning, going back to our earlier point about how do you position the financial value of your specialty and what you're doing. If there's a way to illustrate that spending more time with the patient causes a higher incidence of referral, like that, we've seen over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at your practice, like we didn't do external advertising; it was all
No.
referral based. You know,
Yes.
and I think that speaks to your practice growth. It isn't just like doc, don't retire. It's like, hey, uh, I need to tell you, my family and friends, about this optometrist because they are addressing the same issue that everybody is already experiencing. My kids aren't unique in their myopia management needs. By the year 2050, half of the world's population, we've all heard it, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
plenty of myopia patients to go around. So these parents, when they get this sense of relief, you know, are going to communicate that to the people who matter most in their life because they
Oh,
trust you.
Dale said 10 patients to you, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. Um, okay, so practice growth. Is there a fourth benefit or advantage to being the decision maker?
It's you'll have patients that I don't. The popular thing now, and I get it, is add associates.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, it was tough to do that because they weren't trained, and so if you added someone, you had to train them from scratch how to do what you're doing. They mostly could do general optometry, and that's, I think, what a lot of associates end up doing, at least in specialty practices, group practices I'm in. The associates are doing the general optometry, they call it, not the specialty work. But the key thing, I think, in this whole thing, when you talk about it, it's got to be, the fact is that you can now have, you have these loyal patients, right? And so it
Mm-hmm.
allowed me, and again, freedom. We talk about freedom again. It allowed me to take a third of the year off when I was
Mm-hmm.
my practice. Took a third of the year off to travel for myopia around the world. And these patients who wait for me, I mean, where else do you see that? I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't happen. So, it's a freedom thing again. It's like you've done this long enough that you have actually built a base of patients that are loyal to you,
Yeah.
and that they will then reward you for that.
Yeah.
You'll see
You
that
can live
in
the life that
spades. Yes,
you want to live,
live the life
which
you
is
want to live.
very
Take
important. You want to
vacations.
spend more time with your family or
Take vacations.
take vacations. I talked to a
Be
doc
home
at
with your
Vision by
kids.
Design who as we were talking and I was like, "Well, how are things going?" And he was like, "Oh, great." And then he had this look on his face. He like it gave off this kind of exasperated expression. And I was like, "Great." And he goes, "Yeah, I mean the myopia part, the ortho-k part is going really well. I'm busy all the time." And I was like, "Well, why why the face then?" And he goes, "I got to hire an associate now."
Hmm.
And he's because he's like I just want to do this now. I just want to do
Right.
myopia
That's what
management now.
happens.
When it finally clicked into place for him, he was like, I just want to be the myopia management doc. I don't want to do the
Hmm.
general optometry stuff. So now I have to find an associate who will
Correct.
do that. And that opens up a whole other new set of potential things, right? Like as far as training and whatnot that you're describing. So the final advantage to being the decision maker is being able to basically take your life back into your own
Yeah.
hands and start
Yeah. Which
living the
is
way that
huge.
you've always wanted to, you
It's
know?
huge. It's all what
Yeah.
all of us want.
Yeah, no
It's
doubt.
a goal.
Cary, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, just to have them do it through the podcast, through the Substack, or do you want to put out your email or what do you
The
think?
email is oaadoc doc at Gmail.
Right
But
on.
yes, through the Substack would be fine.
Yeah, if you want to email Cary and give him permission to talk about it, like if you have a question for him or if you have something that we can talk about on the podcast and more directly address what you're looking for, let him know in the email that you send to him if you reach out to him, and we'll definitely because we're here for you. You're supporting us. How can we better serve you? All right, Cary, I'm looking forward to our next episode.
Yeah.
We always get going when it comes to myopia management and practice independence. I'm excited to see where this
Yeah.
takes us.
Yes. Me too.
All right. And for everybody else, we will see you at the next one.